When it comes to defining mediocre franchises in North American professional sports, one organization that fits that mold into that category in so many different ways for me in today's sports landscape has to be the Brooklyn Nets. A team with too many big names and too many unrealistic expectations to be in a position where they can begin a rebuilding project, yet at the same time not being nearly as good as they think they are or can potentially be. And while maybe being a team that can get to the playoffs, they're never really going to be a threat to contend for a championship, let alone win a championship. They are in the worst possible position you could be in sports, in no man's land. Too good to rebuild, too bad to contend for a championship. You're just basically wasting time and a lot of money. And when it comes to the Brooklyn Nets, they have wasted a lot of time over the past few seasons and have most certainly wasted a lot of money and expended a lot in terms of draft pick resources that ultimately will cost this organization very dearly long term once those chickens start to come home to roost. When you look at the Brooklyn Nets, this is a team that has tried to go out and buy a championship, and foolishly so. Now, you might say in the NBA, with organizations like the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat doing what they did to win championships, that it can be done. Yeah, but the problem is that the Boston Celtics already had Paul Pierce in place, and they executed trades to go get Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. And then when you look at the Miami Heat, yes, they brought in LeBron James and Chris Bosh, but they already had Dwayne Wade in the fold. It's a big difference. And then when you look at it, the Celtics won just one title. The Heat won two, but they also lost out on two others. And in recent years, you've had teams like the Mavericks, who I don't think you could sit there and say bought a championship, won one. The Spurs won a championship, and they most certainly didn't buy a championship. And you look at this year's Golden State Warriors, a team built through the draft that most certainly didn't go out and buy their title. All the Brooklyn Nets have done, again, is waste a whole lot of money and continue down this road of mediocrity. I mean, you look at them, the past season, they had the #1 payroll in the NBA, just over $90 million, I believe. And I think the year before, they were #2 at somewhere like $85 or $88 million. So that's multiple seasons in luxury tax territory. So you're not only spending on payroll, but you're having to spend additional money in terms of a luxury tax for the amount of payroll that you already have on the books. All the while, the last 2 years, the Brooklyn Nets have exactly a .500 record in the Eastern Conference with terrible teams like the New York Knicks and the Philadelphia Sixers intentionally tanking season after season. The Brooklyn Nets have managed to compile a .500 record the past 2 years. Just think about that. So you would think at some point in time, the Nets organization would look at what's going on and say, it's time to change up something because all we're doing is wasting a bunch of money that we're never going to get any return on that investment, and it's time to shake things up, and maybe it's time to begin a rebuilding process of some type. Maybe not totally tear it down right away, but slowly, surely, you would think you would have to do something. But no, the Brooklyn Nets continue to do the same damn dumb dick things that have gotten them into this position to begin with and expect the results to ultimately be any different. Now, you've already got Joe Johnson on the books, yes, for only one more year, but at 23, 24 damn million. You've got Darren Williams on the books for a couple of years at 20 million. Those are two overrated, overpaid, underproducing stars, and now you want to add more to that mix? Because that formula has already worked so well for you, right? Now look, I won't give the Nets a lot of grief for re-signing Thaddeus Young. Yes, he's an undersized power forward, but at 27 years of age, a guy that can average 13 to 14 points per game as a third or fourth option on a team, paying him 4 years, $50 million, $12.5 million a season, that's not bad for a really good role player in today's NBA, especially considering how much the salary cap is going to increase come next season and beyond. The deal that the Nets got done with Thaddeus Young will actually look a little better as time goes along, especially now as he'll have a full season in 2015-2016 to figure out his role, figure out his place on that Brooklyn Nets team. But then we get to Brook Lopez, their former first-round pick, 10th overall out of Stanford in 2008, twin brother of Robin. The 27-year-old has managed to average 20 points a game just once in his NBA career. Just once in his 7 seasons in the league. You're talking about a guy that has missed most of 2 of the past 4 seasons. I think it was 4 seasons ago, he played 5 games. 2 seasons ago, he played 17 games. So he had 2 seasons combined where he played in 22 games. He hasn't had a season where he's played 80 games or more, or even 79 games or more, since 2010-2011. He's missed most of 2 of the past 4 seasons with injuries. He's a mediocre rebounder. He's an even worse defender. A one-dimensional offensive big man in today's NBA. And the Brooklyn Nets have decided that they can't get enough of this guy. That they just can't quit Brook. And they've just got to have him for even more. So that way they can spend even more money, perhaps even put themselves into luxury tax territory again, because they love to be able to give away that free money. They've decided to extend Brook Lopez for 3 years and $60 million. Now, granted, there is a player option after that 2nd year, so it very well, for all intents and purposes, could be a 2-year, $40 million deal. And reports are there is some protection language in the contract for the Nets if Brook Lopez continues to have injury problems, what have you. But for crying out loud, even if Brook Lopez is perfectly healthy for the next 2 years, you were paying $20 million per season to a guy who doesn't even average 20 points per game, when that's the only dimension of his game that freaking works is the offensive end. He's a mediocre-ass rebounder, worse than that, frankly, for a guy that's 7 feet, and an even worse defender. A one-dimensional player whose one dimension is good but not great. You paid him great all-around player type of money or dominant one-side-of-the-ball type of money. If the Brooklyn Nets needed to put any type of protections into the language of any type of contracts, they needed to put in language that protects themselves from their own damn stupidity. You've plunked down all of this money to second-rate stars like Joe Johnson and Darren Williams over the years, and even Brook Lopez as well, and the shit hasn't worked. So you think the best way to try and affect any positive change is to continue the same policy that has caused you to waste tons of money the past couple of years and has depleted your draft pick resources for years to freaking come. This is how ridiculous this deal is from a Brooklyn Nets standpoint and an NBA standpoint as a whole. The Brooklyn Nets, who finished 38-44 in 2014-2015, just decided to pay Brook Lopez more money, at least guaranteed for the next 2 years, than the San Antonio Spurs are going to have to give Kawhi Leonard over the next 4 to 5, or the Chicago Bulls are going to have to give Jimmy Butler over the next 4 to 5 years. 2 vastly superior players that are more important, frankly, in today's NBA as perimeter and wing players compared to Brook Lopez as a one-dimensional offensive low-post player. And these are guys that actually play both sides of the floor. These are guys that you could count on to play far more games in a given season than a Brook Lopez, yet the Brooklyn Nets gave more money to him than the Spurs had to give Kawhi Leonard or the Bulls had to give Jimmy Butler. How could certain organizations be so stupid? I mean, is it just that you don't care? You like to give away free money that you're never going to get that return on that investment? Might I make a polite suggestion to the Brooklyn Nets? If you got $2 or $3 million to spare, why don't you send some of it my way? I'll try and do something good with it. I promise you. I promise you. Don't you think there were better usage for that $20 million a year you just gave to freaking Brook Lopez? If you want to give away free money so bad, then find a couple of charities and endow it to them. This is fucking ridiculous. $20 million per season, not total contract, per season for Brook Lopez.